The Common European Framework of Reference. I have often found that even people who are on the surface level familiar with this framework, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, even they are often confused. What do these levels mean? Why are they useful? Why should I care about them? I decided to make this video to accompany my ongoing series where I break down lyrics from Bad Bunny's songs, going into detail about vocabulary points, grammar points, anything that is substantially different from English. You can use this video to try to self-assess, to figure out what your level is, to know which concepts it's best to focus on, and which you can put on the shelf to learn later. Okay, the Common European Framework of Reference. Let's quickly touch upon its history. In the 70s, as the name kind of suggests, it was formulated by the Council of Europe for the purposes of standardizing how language proficiency is evaluated in Europe and abroad. As you know, Europe is very multinational, very multilingual, so learning languages is a big business, and that means there's a lot of research on how people actually learn languages. The framework of reference can be used to communicate to an employer what your level in the desired language is. It's also used by language teachers to plan out their teachings, and by language learners to evaluate where they stand in their language and what else is left to do to reach their desired goals. The biggest benefit of the levels are that when we often self-evaluate, we can be very subjective, and the framework just tries to provide more objective measures of progress. So, what are the levels and where do you stand? The 6 levels are organized into 3 groups. A1 and A2 are for basic users, B1 and B2 are for independent users, and C1 and C2 are for proficient users. I will also provide you with estimates for how long it should take you to reach these levels in Spanish. For more distant languages compared to English, keep in mind it should take longer than this. But what does that mean? Okay. Let's start working up the ladder. Let me know in the comments what you think your level in the language that you're learning is. A1, lower beginner, 75 to 90 total hours. Instituto Cervantes offers 2 classes, 30 in-class hours each that will get you to A1. This is a very basic level. You're only scratching the surface. The competencies that you will have after reaching A1 are knowing how to introduce yourself, introduce others, understand when others introduce themselves. At this level, interaction really isn't smooth at all. You're gonna make lots of pauses, rephrase a lot, make lots of mistakes, and that's fine. That's a natural stepping stone on your language learning journey. At this level, you can also ask and answer very simple questions related to personal details. At this level, interaction is not going to be smooth at all. You're going to be making lots of mistakes. You often need to rephrase what you just said or pause for very long times. But you shouldn't worry about this. This is natural. This is expected. Everyone goes through this level. A2, upper beginner. From A1 to A2, that's 3 more 30-hour-long classes. That's between 115 and 134 hours on top of A1. A2 is, as I call it, the small talk level. At A2, you can talk about the weather, your family, your job. You can talk about shopping. You can basically define an environments that are highly scripted. If you want to make videos where You go to restaurants or stores in foreign countries and you impress the locals with your amazing, perfect, most native like Chinese or whatever. A2 is basically all you need to make those types of videos. The language teachers that you have here are really important because at this level you are still expected to routinely, systematically make basic grammatical mistakes. If your language teacher is very strict or you're very perfectionist yourself, at this level you might start to feel like you were not really that good at learning languages, but that is the thing. Nobody is expected to be good at this level. Mistakes are going to be very frequent. You probably won't be able to keep the conversation going outside of the scripts that you already know, but that's fine. That's just a natural part of the process. We're getting to the intermediate levels, the independent user milestone, where you can get by and continue your language learning process without too much outside help. B1, lower intermediate. This is what I call the conversational level or the tourist level. To get to B1 from A2, Instituto Cervantes offers 5 more 30-hour-long classes. In total, this is 200 to 225 more hours spent on Spanish. I call this the tourist level because if the only purpose of using the language is because you want to be a tourist in the country, then B1 is more than enough. B1 is the level where you can basically get by in most situations that may arise while traveling where the language is spoken. You can go more into detail when it comes to topics like work, school, hobbies. You can describe your past experiences in the forms of stories. You can describe your future aspirations and plans as well. You can also justify any reasoning that you may provide for something. This level is a benchmark for being conversational because it will allow you to carry on short, simple conversations, even if occasionally you're going to continue making mistakes. This is the level at which native speakers no longer feel so burdened to accommodate you. Although if the conversation drags on, things will possibly deteriorate. That's still appropriate for this level. As long as you can get by, that's fine. B2, upper intermediate. The fluency level or the debate bro level. From B1 to B2, it's 5 more 30-hour-long classes, 200 to 225 more hours. I call this the debate bro level because at B2 you basically have all the competencies to start attacking others' opinions, start defending your own opinions, attacking your own opinions, defending others' opinions. At this level, you will feel perfectly fine entering into longer discussions, and native speakers will feel perfectly unburdened entering longer discussions with you. You're still going to make mistakes, however, you will now have the awareness that you're making such mistakes. So you will be able to correct yourself when it comes to most topics that don't require specialized vocabulary or specialized knowledge. You will be able to talk about them and listen to others. A lot of polyglots, when they start learning a new language, they aim to get to at least a B2 level before switching to a different language, because once you get close to B2, then it becomes very hard to forget what you've learned in the language. Even though the scale can't really apply to native speakers of a language, it wasn't made for them. At B2, you should have the proficiency of, say, a middle schooler or early high schooler. Teenagers still accomplish a lot, you know. C1 and C2, lower and upper advanced. I will spend less time on these levels because I consider them a little bit exotic and not necessary for most people. To get from B2 to C1, Instituto Cervantes offers 6 more 30-hour-long classes. C1 is close to a native speaker who hasn't gone through the last 2 years of high school, and C2 is close to a university-educated native speaker. But still, even if you have a C2 in a language, a lot of times native speakers will be able to catch that you yourself are not a native speaker. At C1, you start to catch a lot of implicit meaning in conversation and can effortlessly switch between formal and less formal registers of the language. At C2, you're a master of synonyms and nuance, and at that point you probably have a very rich vocabulary of colloquial. At C2, you are really nailing down a nuance in virtually every aspect of the language, and you can also express yourself with idiomatic expressions and very colloquial speech. At C1, you can basically carry on a conversation forever, as long as you're not multitasking and as long as you strain away from very difficult subjects conceptually, like, say, nuclear fusion. I don't know. At C2, you can be distracted and carry on conversations about nuclear fusion. Although I don't know why you would really need to. At C1, you start to understand a lot of dialects of the language, although you might still struggle, while at C2, you should basically be able to understand any dialect of the language as long as you're given some time to adjust to it. So yeah, this was my quick run through of the Common European Framework of Reference. I hope this is a useful reference for the reference. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, it really helps out a ton. On my channel you can check out my travel vlogs or other videos where I talk about languages. I hope this was useful for you, thank you for sticking until the very end, and I will see you all next time.